Hey folks, Tom Norfleet with www.citizenshipquickly.com. We're putting on a series of tapes on second passports and second citizenships. We've got a series we're putting on today dealing with the first two, getting a passport by citizenship by investment, and the other one is by marrying a national, and we'll be covering some of the other ones on other tapes. Let's go over by marrying a national first, and then we'll go over citizenship by investment. There are basically four different ways to get a second passport, two which we will go over today. The first way is to get a second passport is by marrying a national of the country that you're trying to get citizenship in. If your sole purpose is to get the passport and not to marry, your citizenship could be revoked in most countries if proven that that was the reason you got married. There's no guaranteed time period for a naturalization process to occur using this method. Most countries also require you to be married for a certain period of time before you can apply for the naturalization. You might be required to have children by that marriage to complete this process. In a lot of cases, this method is not quicker. I repeat, it's not quicker than the regular naturalization process, dependent on the country, although a lot of people think otherwise. An example, the UAE has probably the best passport in the Middle East as far as the number of visa-free countries that you can travel to, but it's almost impossible to get unless you were born into an Emirati family, or if you're a female and you marry a male Emirati. If you are a non-Emirati male that marries an Emirati female, you'll never get the UAE passport under current laws unless you are Roger Federer, and even then it's probably iffy. The UAE inflicts heavy discrimination towards females. I know because I lived there for almost 4 years. The UAE has also stepped up additional requirements to get naturalized on females that are not UAE nationals, that marry UAE male nationals, in that you have to have children now by that marriage and not just be married. The UAE also does not allow dual citizenship, and if you are single, do not move there unless you are willing to be a celibate. Just being with your girlfriend in your apartment with no other people in the apartment except the two of you and no sex is taking place could still put you in an Emirati prison. They're real strict with Sharia law, and if you can't deal with that, don't move to the UAE. The second method, which I'm going to go over with you on today, which is the fastest by far, is the citizenship by investment method. This is done by investing either in real estate in areas that the government of that country qualifies as a citizenship development, whereby if you buy property in one of these designated developments and you pay other designated fees, you'll get the citizenship and the passport in this country. Also, making a specified donation towards the country you're choosing will give you the citizenship and passport also in that country. This is not only the fastest way, but it's almost guaranteed if you have the funds to invest to get the passport, as long as you don't have any past civil or criminal problems. There are exceptions on this, but it depends on what you did and how long ago the problem occurred, and did you spend any time in prison for that. We can tell you ahead of time based on your past problems if you would be accepted. You can get citizenship, passport approval very quickly in these countries that I'm going to mention to you using this method. A lot of the below countries that I'm going to talk to you about that use this method do not require you to even visit the country, but I would advise you to do so, especially if you're picking the real estate option for getting citizenship. None of the countries I'm going to tell you about require language tests either. Countries that offer this option, whereby it is done pretty quickly, are countries like St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, St. Lucia, Dominica, Vanuatu, and Cyprus. All the countries I've just mentioned, you can do it in about 2 to 4 months, except Cyprus, which will take you about 6 months to get it done. One note when investing is to try and avoid fractional shares if you're going with the property option. Even if the developer guarantees to buy back your shares after the time period that you're to hold them to keep your citizenship, it's very difficult to resell your fractional shares when the time comes to do so. When you do this, why do this when you can buy a property and own the whole property yourself for about the same price as buying the fractional shares of a property? This is what I've always wondered. That's why I tell people don't buy fractional shares. Let's examine the above programs that I just talked about. St. Kitts and Nevis. This is the oldest citizenship program in the world. And even after all programs ceased to exist after the bombing of the World Trade Center in 2001, this program stayed in force, and other programs did not come back into operation until about 2010. Some countries like Belize and St. Vincent that actually pulled out and never came back in with a fast track program again. They still do have residency programs, but it takes forever to get the citizenship with the programs they've got now. St. Kitts and Nevis currently has one of the cheapest real estate options at only $200,000 US dollars that you would buy property, and there are government fees that you have to pay on top of this. If you go with the real estate option, buy the whole property and not a fractional part called fractional shares, as I mentioned to you earlier, because fractional units are almost impossible. It's like age, you can't get rid of them. I can't overemphasize that enough. It is also pure tax haven, which just adds icing to the cake. This is one of the things I really like about St. Kitts, whereas the other ones, other than Antigua and Barbuda, are not what I call pure tax havens, other than Antigua and Barbuda. The donation option is not the cheapest if you compare with the other Caribbean countries such as Antigua and Barbuda or St. Lucia. The donation goes towards the SIDF, which is the Sugar Industry Diversified Fund, and it's used to help the people that were laid off from the Federation that got out of the sugar business because it became an unprofitable business, and they were using this to help employ these people. St. Kitts and Nevis has the best visa-free and visa-free on arrival countries to travel to compared to the other Caribbean countries, including Vanuatu. It does not beat the visa-free number of countries that you can travel to with a Cyprus passport, but the Cyprus passport will cost you over 2 million euros to get that passport. When you compare a Cyprus passport to a St. Kitts and Nevis passport, you need to look at the amount of visa-free and visa-free on arrival countries that you can go to. And with Cyprus giving you more countries that you can go to visa-free, are those extra visa-free countries with Cyprus worth paying that much more over what a St. Kitts and Nevis passport would cost? And do you want to move to a European Union country? Because Cyprus is part of the EU, and getting this passport would allow you to do that. So it will give you, access to the EU. So you have to look at that option too. Dominica, let's go over that country. This country is in the Caribbean. It has one of the cheapest donation options. It has the lowest real estate option limits of the countries listed, which I've given you, with a real estate limit of $200,000 US dollars, like St. Kitts and Nevis, with some other fees, but again, less visa-free travel than St. Kitts and Nevis. But again, the total fees for the real estate option would be less with Dominica than St. Kitts. So you have to look at that too. It just depends on what you're looking for, what you want to pay. The total fees for this country for the donation option for one person would be about approximately $130,000 US dollars. All right, let's go over Antigua and Barbuda. This country, at the time this update was done on the website, had the cheapest donation option for a family of four. It would run about $155,000 to $160,000 US dollars for a family of four, and this goes to what's called the National Development Fund. The real estate option minimum limit would be $400,000 plus some other government fees. If you're going with the real estate option, St. Kitts and Nevis would be a better option than Antigua and Barbuda because of cost and visa-free travel. Dominica should be looked at also for this option, but the visa-free travel would be less with Dominica over St. Kitts and Nevis. There's a third option for getting economic citizenship in Antigua and Barbuda, and that is to invest in local business with a minimum of 1.5 million US dollars. That's a very unpopular option though because of the cost when you can go with cheaper options with the others that I mentioned. Grenada, let's go over this country. This country is in the Caribbean and has now lowered its real estate limit to $220,000, and it has a donation option, which the cost depends on how many people in your family want the citizenship. This real estate option that's been lowered to $220,000 US dollars, that has just been done that recently. Both options are not competitive when you compare with the other real estate options and donation options in the Caribbean. When you look at the price and visa-free travel that you get for what you're paying for, there are some advantages with this country, Grenada, that you will not get with the other countries in the Caribbean, and they are, number one, Grenada is one of the few countries in the world that have visa-free travel to China. Number two is it's the only fast-track program to get citizenship that has an E2 treaty with the USA. The E2 treaty does have special advantages if you want to get into the lucrative U.S. market in as quick as 3 months to start your own business with very little investment, and you can avoid worldwide taxation because you can avoid the green card and also the citizenship trap using this treaty, because now you've got the Grenada citizenship, and you only have to get around the substantial presence test rule, which I won't get into that because it roughly is 120 days that you need to be outside the U.S. or that rule kicks into play, and your income will be taxed worldwide, even if you're not a citizen of the U.S. But there are ways that you can avoid the taxes worldwide by using this rule. You just need to watch what you're doing. Cyprus, let's go over this country. This small country, which is very close to the Middle East, has a program where you can get citizenship in as quick as 6 months. The visa-free travel of this country is better than any of the prior Caribbean countries mentioned. But the key question is it worth it? I mean, it's a lot of money, 2 million euros that you're paying. Most of that's in fact, all of it's being invested in property, but there are fees on top of that you have to pay, the government fees, and they indoctrinated other fees too that they just put in that are government fees too that are pretty high. Unless you want to migrate to an EU country to work or set up a business, and you can do this without having to fork out 2 million euros, I would by far stick with the Caribbean options. Most of our fast-track programs are done in the Caribbean because the deal is better there for the money, for what you're paying for, and the visa-free travel that you're getting for that. There is a 3-month residency requirement on paper for Cyprus, but not a physical residency requirement before that citizenship is granted. The minimum investment is 2.5 million euros if you buy property or properties that are not new, or 2 million euros if the properties are new. This was a recent change that was made not too long ago. Of this amount of money that you would be investing, 500,000 euros has to be used for your primary residence. And you actually have to keep that in force for your lifetime. And they might change that, but that's not the law right now. There is an additional 150,000 euros going towards 2 social programs and some other government fees, which I mentioned earlier, depending on the size of your family wanting the citizenship. Since they added this 150,000 new government fees, the program has slowed down dramatically, and I got a feeling they're going to withdraw that. So you can stay tuned, and we'll let you know further if that's pulled out. But that has hampered the program dramatically. I thought it was a stupid move when they pulled that in recently. Cyprus is part of the EU, so getting citizenship here for you and your family members could allow you to work in any country in the EU. All right, let's go over Malta. Here's another country that we deal with that you can get citizenship in. The visa-free travel on this passport is even better than Cyprus. But you'd have to be willing to donate around 650,000 euros. Now, not invest, this is a donation, so you don't get this back, okay? To Malta, you're donating 650,000 euros, and then you have to invest another 350,000 euros in a property, and you can live in it yourself right away, but you can't rent it out for at least 5 years, which I think is a stupid rule, but that's the rule they've got. And you got to invest another 150,000 euros in bonds paying a low interest rate, right around 1%. The visa-free travel using this passport is one of the best in the world. I will have to say that. Malta is one of the few countries that still gets visa-free travel to the USA. It's cheaper than the Cyprus passport, and it will take you about a year to get it. That's the big disadvantage, is the time period to get it and the cost. A lot of that money is not invested, it's given to the government. It's kind of like a huge tax. If you got a question or comment below, put that in. See what I can do to help you in answering that. Also, if you will hit the subscribe button to the right of your screen, you'll get new videos as they come out. Also, folks, if you're thinking about doing this, as I mentioned over and over again, if it's not from our company, get some help from somebody. I see people just pondering and never doing anything on something like this, and then years later they just regret the hell of all the taxes they paid. Getting this fee paid for 1 year, just paying for it one time, will be a lot less than what you're going to pay in taxes every single year. And taxes is every single year. You can pay one fee, get it done, learn the program, learn the system, and get your taxes to zero or close to zero. If I can help you, let me know. You can go on our website, look at our videos as much as you want. We put a lot of free stuff out there. Stay tuned for our next video, and I look forward to talking to you then. Thanks.